recording today. You can ask questions, but if y'all start talking a whole lot, they can't hear me.
Okay, you got a little voice. You do.
Is it like live in the classroom or?
It's recorded.
I see you.
Okay, so let's look at.
Why do you have to record your lesson?
I teach classes online
Oh.
or other schools.
So they're looking at you right now?
No, it's recorded.
It's recorded. She only said it like 5 times.
Okay, but some people could be listening.
Okay, so medical terminology. Before you get hung up on these root words and worried about them, let's talk about how to break words down and how we actually use medical terminology. So we learned the directional terms, right? Last week, what are some examples of directional terms that we learned? Dorsal means what?
Back.
Back. What else?
Proximal.
Proximal means what? Near the point of attachment, right? What'd you say, Cody?
Cranial.
Cranial. I don't know if we learned that one last week, but
I knew it
somewhere.
is.
Superficial. Yeah, I knew I
Towards
was.
the head. Superficial. Shallow, right? Spinal. Good.
Oh.
Okay, so those are directional terms, and you'll hear as we go through some of these, you'll hear some of these root words. Now, the reason that medical terminology is so helpful is one, it will really help when or if you ever take anatomy. It will help to learn those parts of the body, because you'll see that there is a pattern to why things are named. You hear a disease that someone in your family has, or you'll hear, you go to the doctor and they say they need to do whatever it is. You'll start to hear word parts that you recognize, and you'll be able to pick apart. Okay, like cardiomyopathy. Okay, for example, it sounds like this crazy word. Well, I know that pathy means disease. Cardio. What did I say? Cardiomyopathy. Cardio means what? Heart. Myo means muscle. So I know that cardiomyopathy, I may not know just looking at it what it means, but I know, right, when I think about the different word parts like disease, heart, muscle, so I know that it's a heart disease, has to do with the muscle part of the heart, how the heart works. So that's why you use it, yes.
How many different things?
Do what?
How many things we just, never mind.
Okay, medical words can be separated. So each section, like I said, with cardiomyopathy has a meaning that helps to define it. Once that particular section is identified, then you can use it and figure out, at least have an idea of what it means. Usually when you look at that section, like I did with cardiomyopathy, you start with the last one and then you go back to the beginning. So disease of the heart muscle. Okay, so there's different parts of each word. You had the word root, which is all of your terms on your medical body person. Those are all root words. And root word is just like if you learn, your root word when you were in elementary and you added ing or ed to it. Your root word is just the basis of what it is. So you got your root word, the combining form, which is just another form of the root word that helps you to be able to put it with other word parts. A prefix, where do you find a prefix on a word?
Front.
At the front, right? What you guys may not know, whenever we get to prefixes, pre means before. So pre-operatively means before you go into surgery. Okay, suffix is after the word, right? Like ing or ed, those are all suffixes that you already know. So we'll look at different ones. Every medical term does not necessarily have every word part. Not all the time. Okay, the root is the basic meaning. Usually indicates a part of the body. Not always, but typically indicates a specific part of the body. Like, what are some examples of some that we've learned or you've put on your body already?
Huh?
What are some of your words from your project?
Cardio.
Cardio means?
Heart.
Heart. What else? Gastro. Stomach. Pneumo. Lung. Reno. Kidney. Those are all examples of these word roots. Okay, If the term contains more than one root, it's considered a compound word.
Can I just tell me real quick, please?
Hey, Micah, girl, how you been?
Megan, Miss Falls remembered the, we hold these truths of the software, that piece that we're supposed to, she said remember to say that to her.
Thank you.
If the term contains more than one root, it's a compound word. So cardiomyopathy is an example of a, like I talked about a while ago, is an example of a compound word, because cardio means, what again?
Heart.
Heart. Myo means muscle. Think my big old muscles. So heart muscle, that's a root word because it's got two, it's a compound word because it's got two roots in it. Does that make sense? Are we good with that? Okay, if you've ever been to a stomach doctor, they're called a gastroenterologist. Ologist at the end of the word means a specialist or somebody who studies. Gastro is what? Stomach. Entero means small intestine or intestines. So literally means a specialist of the stomach and intestines. And that's what they do. A gastroenterologist is a doctor that you go see about whatever stomach issues you're having. So that's another compound word. Okay, all terms you're going to see have at least one root word. Not necessarily all will have a prefix, but all will have at least a root word. So some examples, like it says, are cardi, heart, and gastro, stomach. Okay, the combining form is the word root plus whatever vowel it needs in the middle of it. That's why whenever you hear me like on your medical terms, it might just say G-A-S-T-R. Usually if I say it, I say gastro, because O at the end of that makes its combining form. Just when you add that combining letter, it's easier to say for one, but that's how you add it in. So the vowel is used to help pronounce it. Usually it's an O. It's used between word roots and compound words, like we talked about gastroenterologist or gastrointestinal. Okay, intestine means intestines, like your small intestines. So, but you put that O in there, that helps to say it, and that's the correct form of it. So gastrointestinal. Okay, it's used when a suffix also starts with a consonant. So one we've already learned. Let's look at arthritis. We've already learned arthritis. What is it? What about them?
What's wrong with the joints?
Inflammation in the joints.
Yes. Okay, so I can pull this one apart. And this suffix means inflammation, like you guys just said. It starts with a vowel, so it doesn't need that extra O. But if I wanted to say, well, I'll leave that up there. Okay, if I wanted to say, what did I say was the word for disease? Did y'all catch it earlier?
P something. I can't remember.
Pathy.
Yeah, that.
So if I said arthropathy, okay, pathy is my suffix, it means disease. I do need that O, that combining form with it, because this starts with a consonant. See the difference? It needs the O if the suffix starts with a consonant. It doesn't need it if it starts with a vowel.
So on gastro, if you were to add an O, that means you're combining something, right?
Yes, like,
That's why you just have it as G-A-S-T-R?
yes.
Okay.
That's just the root word. It's a combining form when you add the O. So for example, gastritis. So what would gastritis be?
Stomach.
Stomach.
Inflammation, right? So inflammation of the stomach. But if I change it to gastrology,
Study of stuff.
logy is the study of something, just like biology or
Geology.
geology, thank you, astrology, whatever. So logy at the end means the study of, and I do want that O in there because it starts with a consonant, the logy. Make sense? Everybody understand when you use that combining word? Now, the only other time you're going to use it, and it doesn't even matter, is if you're always going to use it between two roots. Like I said, with gastrointestinal. Just like, even though it starts with the vowel, there's two root words here, so I'm going to use the O. Now, I won't ever ask you to make a medical term. I'm not gonna say, tell me what the stomach and intestines, that's not gonna be a question that I ask. But I will ask, what is gastrointestinal, what does that mean? And I would expect you to tell me both stomach and intestines. Okay. When you start making up words, it gets kind of wild, so. And just like in English, there's, everything's got an exception and whatnot, so. Okay, suffix is the word ending, like we said earlier, and it changes the meaning of the word. So we got our root word that tells what part of the body. So let's say we've got cardio, heart. Okay, suffix changes what it actually means. So example is logi, like we just said, the study of. So cardiology would be what?
Study of the heart.
Study of the heart. Okay. Another example is IC, like cardiac. Well, that one was IC or AC. All of those just mean pertaining to. So if I say cardiac, it just means pertaining to the heart. Or if I say, what's another we learned? I think of another one that's on your body.
Neurology.
Well,
Rocky.
neurology. Gastric. What about gastric? Pertaining to the stomach. Okay, it's just a descriptive word. So when the suffix begins with a consonant, like we just said, you'll use the combining form of the word root, just like we talked about. If it starts with a vowel, you don't need that extra O in there. Okay, a prefix occurs at the beginning of a term, and it can describe it, or it can change it, or limit it. Now, not all terms, like I said, have prefixes. Some will. So here is one example. We know, what does geriatric mean?
Pertaining to the elderly.
The elderly, right? So ger at the beginning means elderly. Iatro, I-A-T-R, is the root word for treatment. And IC, we just found out, means what? Pertaining to. So the literal meaning, pertaining to elderly treatment. That's what the literal meaning of that word is when you pull it apart. Geriatric, pertaining to elderly treatment. Make sense? How you can pull those things apart? Gero is just describes it, tells you what kind of treatment it is. Sub is another example. Let's say sub, that's not really, well, I'll make this word up, but you don't usually say it quite like this. Subdermic, what does dermo mean? Skin, right? That's on your body person. So pertaining to below the skin. Does that make sense? Pick it apart. What's really cool is this is Latin. I mean, that's what these terms are, Latin in nature. So when you hear them, they pertain to a lot of other things that you learn. Like, I don't know. My husband, for example, he's going to seminary, so he's constantly looking up Greek words. Well, Greek and Latin are really similar, so a lot of times I know it before he does. Too excited. Okay, so when you're decoding the terms, kind of like we've just done, first thing you want to do is define the suffix. Okay, so if we're using, let's use cardiomyopathy again. Okay, so define the suffix. We know it's pathy, which is disease. Define the prefix, which I don't have one on here, but we'll add one. I have no idea if this is even a word, I'm just making it up. Peri means around, like perimeter. It's a prefix that means around. So
These around the heart.
yeah, around the heart muscle is what we'll say. Okay, so define the prefix, and then you go on to the root. So you start with the last section, and then you go back to the beginning and read it from here. That's how you decode these terms. Okay, then you combine the definitions like we said. So geriatric, like we said, pertaining to elderly treatment. Okay, some medical terms can be, or medical roots or word parts can be used for any of the above. Any prefix or suffix or root. You'll hear them used as any of them. So one example is mega. It says here, Mega can be a prefix for large, like, I'm trying to think of the word. I've heard mega, I mean, you know what the mega.
Big.
Yeah, it means large. Trying to think of a good medical term in my mind. Just went blank. Mega.
So you can't have an enlarged heart, son.
Yes, it's called, but in that, it's actually used as a root word. So mega can be a prefix for large, but megalo is the root word. So cardio, megaly, for example, Y at the end of the word just means pertaining to. So you've got cardio and megalo, whatever you can say it. So heart enlarged, pertaining to an enlarged heart. But megaly can, oh, that wasn't a very good term. I'm trying to think of another one. Megalo something. I guess it was technically used as a suffix, and now I messed up my own example. But anyway, crin is another suffix for secrete, like endocrine, for example, and then it can be used as an actual root word too, so you'll hear both. Site is one that you see a lot used that way. Okay, building medical terms. So if we want to talk about something and we want to say it has to do with the liver, okay? Hepato, or hepat, is the root word for liver. So for building it, it goes the opposite. So pertaining to, through the liver. Pertaining to is going to be the suffix, because remember we learned the suffix first and then go back and read it. So trans, I told you guys already, means what? We talked about it when we did transverse. Remember the transverse plane? Through or across. So hepatic, IC means pertaining to, trans means through, hepato means liver. Pertaining to through the liver. So transhepatic can be a surgery or an incision. Those are some examples. And the more you practice these, the more it will come together. And I'll give you guys a worksheet at the beginning of next week to practice them. Inflammation of the liver. So we got trans. Got these up there again. Transhepatic meant through the liver, pertaining to through the liver. We want inflammation of the liver. Hepatitis. Itis, remember, means inflammation. Hepato means liver. Or a liver cell. Site is the suffix for cell. So, hepatocyte. So you see how you build terms? They all have hepato in them because they're all pertaining to the liver. This one is through the liver, inflammation of the liver, cell, liver cell. Literally what that means. That makes sense? See how there's a pattern to them? You hear that root word in all of them? Okay? It's pretty simple to read these. It's just a matter of memorizing the word parts. Once you figure that out, though, I never had medical terminology before I went to nursing school. If I had, it would have changed my whole nursing school experience because I didn't realize that there was a pattern. I just memorized everything as what it was. I'd memorize hepatitis, and then I'd memorize transhepatic. I didn't, which maybe that was really stupid of me, but I just didn't put together that hepato as the common term in there and think, okay, well, you know, that didn't transfer in my head for whatever reason. Okay, so when you're pronouncing the different terms, because that becomes an issue. If there's a term you're not sure how to pronounce, tell me, because I want to make sure you guys are pronouncing it correctly. Because sometimes it sounds different than what it might look like. But typically, it sounds exactly, if you're pulling out every syllable, it will sound just like that. Okay, so typically the letters, and these are the same as in English terms. G and C are soft, okay, when they're followed by an I or an E. So like ginger, C is followed by I, G, J, that's a soft sound. And then scent is a soft sound followed by E. And are hard, as in good and can, when followed by an O or an A. So typically whenever you hear those, you're trying to pronounce them, you can go by some of these rules. When two consonants begin a word, the first one is silent. What are some regular English examples of that? Two consonants starting and the first one's silent.
No.
Anyone know?
No.
Michaela.
They're not silent though. Nick.
It's like.
But that was not the first one.
You talking about
Names are
silent
different.
letters?
Do what?
New. Thank you, Jesus.
Yes, like you knew something.
Jose.
K-N-E-W. What did you say, Megan?
I said Jose, that's one.
Pneumonia. P. What'd you say?
Jose.
There's a girl, her last
No,
name was
Jose doesn't work. So it doesn't have H.
Eustace.
It's just the name way it's pronounced in Spanish.
There's a girl, her last name was Eustace, but it didn't sound like
It started with an E.
Yeah.
The E is one that you hear a lot. E-U. P and N. K and N. P-T.
When I was little, I used to spell pneumonia with an N, N-E-W-M-O-N-I-A.
Pneumonia is spelled P-N-E-U-M-O.
Look at you doing.
Okay, anyway, so that's how you pronounce those. Okay, so when two consonants begin a word, the first is silent. Ptosis is one example. This is where you have a droopy eyelid. That's called ptosis. Starts with a P. And if the two consonants are found in the middle of a word, both are pronounced, like blepharoptosis. That means you have ptosis of the actual eyelid. Ptosis just means to droop. Like some of you guys' head. Okay, plurals. For words ending in an A, you keep the A and you add an E, like vertebrae, for example. What are your vertebrae? Your bones in your spine, right? So if you're talking about one bone, it's just vertebra. If you're talking about many, it's vertebrae with an E. That's how you pluralize that. For words ending in an IS, you drop the IS and you add an ES. Okay, so for example, epiphysis, or what about diagnosis? You've learned that one already. Diagnosis versus diagnoses. ES makes it plural. Shh, I'm recording and they can't hear if you guys are mumbling while I'm talking. Okay, so for words ending in IX and EX, you drop the IX and the EX and you add ICES, like appendix.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? So those are some examples. Okay, so let's go over these first root words you need to memorize for the quiz, and then we'll be done for the day.
Adeno.
Okay, adeno means gland. So, and I like to put these, I know they're all in their combining forms because they're a lot easier to say.
I didn't put the O at all
On the paper,
on my note card.
that's okay. It's okay if you don't. I just put them on there because it makes them much easier to pronounce if I put the O on there. For me, anyway. Adeno means gland. Angio is vessel. That can be anywhere, like you probably, if you've ever heard anybody say that they had stents, you probably heard them say angiogram or angiography vessel. Arterio is artery. That one's pretty simple, right? It sounds similar, and a lot of them will sound similar. Arthro is joint, okay? Not bones, but joint, like arthritis, inflammation of a joint, okay? Brachio is arm. Think you break your arm. You remember it that way? Brachii is arm. Cardio is heart. We've learned that one. Cerebro is brain. Okay, and the reason that cerebro is brain because the particular parts of your brain that you usually look at when you see are called the cerebrum. So cerebro is brain. So cerebral is pertaining to like cerebral palsy has to do with the brain. Cerebro, I don't know what else. Cerebro. Cerebro. C, remember, is soft if it has an E behind it. Cervical is neck. Y'all have already learned that, right? We learned cervical pertaining to the neck. Chondro is cartilage, like hypochondriac. We talked about the abdominal regions. Colo is colon or large intestine. Those are the same thing. When you hear colon and large intestine, those are the same word or same organ. Cysto is bladder or fluid-filled sac. Could be either one, like when you have a cyst. Probably heard of the word cyst. It's just a fluid-filled sac. But it can also stand for your bladder, which your bladder is a fluid-filled sac. So, dermo or dermato can mean skin. Where have you heard that before?
Dermatologist.
Dermatologist, right? A skin specialist or specialist of the skin.
Where are there any skin specialists around here?
Pairs.
Yeah, hair screen will. Entero means small intestine, like we talked about with the gastroenterologist or gastroenteritis, sometimes you'll hear. Gastrostomach, hemo or hemato is blood, and hepato is liver. Always remember, pat rhymes with fat. Fat pat. Fat pat. And your liver filters, or breaks down fat in your body. So that's how I remember that. Fat pat, liver broke down our fat. So hepato is liver. Hemato is blood. Those are two you want to make sure that you look at and remember those two. Okay, that's all for today. Make sure you get your flashcards done over these. These will be on the quiz Monday. Tomorrow we'll spend the day working on your projects. And you've got about 12 minutes to get your flashcards done.
Well, we have to have
Can you check these words for me?
You have to have them done by Monday.
Can you check these words for me? Tell me if I got them right.
Uh-huh.
Girl, get off the camera.